of changes will go a great deal to helping us build to a more perfect union.
Now, I want to touch on the camera since you just mentioned it. We know that there has already been more transparency put in place to get some of those videos out as soon as possible to the public, but there's still sometimes hoops that we have to jump through in order to get those out right away. Do you think they need to be out sooner when use of force is used by a police officer?
Well, I want to make sure before anybody rushes to any judgment that we're able to get all the information. Because lots of times when we're judging, an officer only has a couple minutes to make a decision. That's why the training is more important than anything else that we're going to do. I think having the video cameras where they're stored, making sure that everybody can see them in an appropriate amount of time, especially in a current situation, you'd want to make sure sooner than later. But you want to make sure that they're trained ahead of time, be able to see the footage so it can de-escalate so much of the challenges that we have.
About the new reform options that are being put in place, there's always a concern, even though these are being put in place, that there will be no checks and balances for it. How will we ensure that these new processes are actually being done and someone's actually looking at them?
Well, I think that's why transparency. Like the president, he's making sure something's happening now by doing an executive order. Now it's the responsibility of the House and Senate to pass a bill to become law, to put into law many of the things that the president is talking about today. Like, he's eliminating the chokehold. I know a lot of departments have already done that, but let's make sure it's across the nation. He's making sure transparency, that you can go to one database, no matter what department is, and look at the history and the past history of somebody who's applying to become an officer. Then you also now have training. We're supplying money for that. The video cameras, we'd supply money for that too. So a department may be small, but have the opportunity to get the high-level training plus the video cameras, so we'd be in a more safe situation for all.
I'd like to know your opinion on the carotid hold that these departments are doing. The president banned it, but not if the officer's life is in danger. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that's appropriate. The last thing you want to have is somebody who's defending our life be into a fight by hand to hand and think that they couldn't do something to defend themselves. When you're talking about only in the life of the officer, well, that really concerns me is when I looked at somebody's handcuffed and someone's put into a hold. Those are the things that should be outlawed, how the people are treated. But remember, the officers are defending our lives, coming to a call where somebody's in our room trying to kill us or others. I want to be able to, in those situations, de-escalate it, arrest them and take care of them. But if their life is in danger and they're in a fight, I don't want them to sit back and think, I can't throw a punch to defend myself.
Yesterday, you took part in the conversation with BC's Juneteenth, that they're moving up to Juneteenth, and you said the Bakersfield Police Department is working to adapt classes on racial conflict in its police academy. Can you elaborate on that and what they're doing?
Well, they're continuing to expand. We should be proud of what our police department has done where others have not. They had put into place with the last police chief that they were able to do to look at individuals prior, if an officer had a report on them, that they didn't wait till the reports got too many, that just a few they had a review. They could ever know that this individual had to have training as well. And what they found too is that there's certain instances where they couldn't use certain actions that we're trying to deal with today. So what we're looking at with this department as well is even going further. Like what we found going across this country it is about George Floyd and his family, but it's about all the things that weren't on videotape, all the things that had transpired before. And we may not know it. I don't know what it's like to be a woman. I don't know what it's like to be Hispanic, an African American, or others. And we need to have a better understanding of one another. And I think that's important for everyone who becomes an officer. We want to make it sure it's in a microcosm of our society and everybody understands. That's why I get proud of the opportunity when we change the police department to be community policing. Because then you're in the neighborhoods, you know one another, and you take away all these other chances of making a mistake, of self-identifying somebody incorrectly.
Do you think these changes will be easy to implement, or do you see any challenges with these changes?
I think there's always going to be some challenges, but I think we're big enough to overcome them. And it's not just by writing a piece of legislation is going to take away racism. It will not do it. It's a responsibility of all of us. I mean, if we really sit back for a moment and think back in our life when we had witnessed something but said nothing, that is wrong. We have a responsibility as all Americans to stand up. Nobody should be judged by the color of their skin or by the color of their uniform. And I think it's a responsibility for everybody in the community, not to pass judgment, but make sure we live by the rule of law.
I want to talk a little bit about COVID-19. We had local health officials this morning expressing their concern for nursing facilities that are struggling to get this under control. And the county saying that they're struggling because they don't have access to get into them. But the county is seeing the effect because cases are going up, deaths are going up, which could stop us moving forward in reopening. What are your thoughts? Should the state be doing more to step in and get that under control?
I think so. The one thing we have learned with COVID, some of our biggest challenges for the entire nation, and we look what happened in New York and others, are the nursing homes. It was the governor sending sick people in there. This is where we should really focus, because it could help a great deal across the nation. The state should have, and I believe they have, a special unit to come in. They used it once before, but we should not be slow at this. We need to be fast. We need to be fast on testing, which we've done a tremendous job in the last little bit, more than 22 million tests. You have the ability to do that. But the tracing and others, don't let this spread. I know there's a concern out there that there's an uptick, but we just had a lot of protests out there, people close, people speaking. We probably will see an uptick because of the protests, but we should be able to trace that, track that, and get on top of it and take care of this in a short time period.
With the concern with a little bit of an uptick, falling protests, we also have Memorial Day weekend, of course, that people probably gathered. July 4th is coming up. Do you think celebrations should be canceled?
Well, there's a way to do a celebration, but not a mass group. I wouldn't want to see everybody like the protest all real close together. Let's wear masks, let's wash our hands, let's keep social distancing. That's a key. Let's continue to be smart about what we're doing. I think what you're finding is COVID is being consistently through. I don't know that's a second wave, it's still the first wave coming through. I think we have more information on how to deal with it. We're better prepared when it comes to the personal protection equipment, better prepared when it comes to testing. We're making great strides when it comes to a vaccine. 4 of the major companies are in the third phases, could have as early of this year, for sure in the beginning of next year. The therapies are coming forward that we could deal with this as well. So every day it improves. Let's not fall back on the things that we know that work. Social distancing, washing your hands, being smart about our interaction. And the great thing about fireworks, they go up in the air. So we could be socially distancing, watching it, not all have to be congregating together.
Anything about police reform or COVID-19 that you want to share that we didn't ask?
Look, the most important thing about police reform, we want the very best police officer, she or he. And the number one people that want bad officers removed are good officers. And sometimes it's very difficult to remove somebody. Sometimes to remove them, you take away their record, so then they go to another department and not know. That's why I think performance, you have better training. You have better transparency. You have other eyes on it if something's being reported about an officer or not. But let's make sure that officer has all the resources they need to carry out the job, that they're not put in a situation like that they know how to de-escalate. And let's make sure when we call 911, there's somebody for us. So let's not defund the police department. Let's just make sure that we can improve and be where we need to be. Thank you.